One of the greatest secrets of success is developing absolute clarity in your thinking. Every breakthrough in life begins with clarity. Clarity about who you are, what you want, and where you're. Most people drift through life reacting to events, pulled in every direction by distractions, interruptions, and other people's agendas. But the top 5%, the leaders, the high achievers, operate with a sense of direction that comes from deep, deliberate clarity. Clarity begins with knowing what you want. Not what you think you should want, or what someone else wants for you, but what you genuinely desire. When your goals are vague, your actions are scattered. When your vision is blurry, your effort is wasted. But when you have a clear mental picture of what success looks like for you, your brain begins to operate differently. Your subconscious mind starts working 24/7 to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Clarity also demands that you know your values. What matters most to you? What are you unwilling to compromise? When you know your values, decisions become easier. You stop second-guessing yourself. You begin to think with integrity, alignment, and focus. You spend less time chasing the wrong things and more time building the right things. The clearer you are about your goals and values, the faster you will move toward them. Clarity simplifies everything. It sharpens your priorities. It guides your thinking. It gives you energy, because uncertainty is exhausting, but clarity is liberating. When you know exactly what you're aiming for, confusion disappears, hesitation fades, and confidence grows. Upgrade your mental software. Your mind is your most powerful asset. Everything you are, everything you have, and everything you ever will become is the direct result of the way you think. Just like a computer runs on software, your life runs on mental programming. Your beliefs, habits, assumptions, and thought patterns. And then just like outdated software slows down a computer, outdated thinking holds you back from achieving your full potential. If you want to change your life, the first and most important step is to upgrade your mental software. You are not born with limitations. You acquired them. From early childhood, your mind has been shaped by influences, parents, teachers, culture, media, friends. Over time, certain beliefs and ways of thinking became a normal, even if they weren't true or useful. Many of us walk around carrying mental codes that were written decades ago in a different version of ourselves, for a different stage of life. And yet we wonder why we're stuck, frustrated, or underperforming. You cannot build a first-class life with second-rate thinking. Upgrading your mental software starts with awareness. Begin to observe your thoughts. What do you say to yourself when you face a challenge? What stories do you repeat about who you are and what you're capable of? Most people live on autopilot, repeating the same thought patterns day after day. But awareness disrupts the loop. It gives you the power to rewrite the code. Once you're aware of limiting beliefs or outdated scripts, you can challenge them, reject them, and replace them with better ones. The fastest way to upgrade your thinking is to feed your mind new input. Your brain is like fertile soil. It will grow whatever you plant. If you fill it with fear, doubt, gossip, or negativity, don't be surprised when your thinking becomes toxic. But when you deliberately nourish your mind with powerful ideas, wisdom, and truth, you begin to think at a higher level. Read good books every single day. Listen to audio programs and mentors who have the results you want. Have conversations with people who challenge and stretch you. Mental growth is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong habit. Repetition is key. You don't rewire years of mental conditioning overnight. Just like installing new software, the old version needs to be overwritten again and again. 10. Affirmations, visualization, journaling, and reflection are tools to do this. By repeatedly focusing on what you want and affirming the beliefs that support it, you begin to form new neural pathways. Over time, your default thinking changes. You don't have to try to be confident. You become confident. You don't have to fake discipline. You think and act like a disciplined person. You upgrade the software, and the system runs better automatically. Environment also matters. You can't plant powerful ideas in your mind and then spend the rest of your time in a toxic environment. Who you spend time with matters. What you consume matters. Your surroundings either support your growth or sabotage it. Surround yourself with people who are thinking big, solving problems, and moving forward in life. Cut out the noise, the gossip, and the drama. Your mind becomes sharper when it's not overloaded with mental junk food. One of the most powerful upgrades you can make is shifting from problem thinking to solution thinking. Most people get stuck because they keep asking, "Oh, why is this happening to me?" That's a disempowering question. High performers ask, "What can I do about this?" Or, "What's the opportunity in this situation?" They train their minds to stay focused on outcomes, not obstacles. This simple shift rewires the brain toward growth, action, and forward motion. Another critical software upgrade is adopting a mindset of responsibility. A mindset of responsibility. When you take full responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, and actions, you take control of your life. You stop waiting for someone else to rescue you or for the perfect time to arrive. You realize that you are the programmer. You are the one writing the mental code you live by every day. Think on paper. One of the simplest but most powerful tools for mastering your mind is putting your thoughts on paper. Thinking on paper transforms the invisible into the visible. It takes vague, scattered ideas floating around in your head and gives them shape, form, and structure. When you write things down, you take control of your thinking. You move from passive thought to active clarity. Most people never do this, and that's why they stay stuck, overwhelmed, or confused. But the highest achievers use paper and pen as tools of precision thinking. The human brain is a miracle of processing power, but it has limits. Trying to carry too many thoughts at once overloads your mental bandwidth. You can't solve problems effectively when your mind is cluttered, with 20 open loops. But the moment you begin to write, you offload that mental clutter. You capture it. You tame it. It's like cleaning a messy room. Suddenly, everything becomes visible. You can prioritize, organize, and act. Writing forces you to slow down and think more deeply. In conversation or daydreaming, it's easy to jump from one idea to another without finishing a single thought. But on paper, you must complete the sentence. You must finish the thought. This discipline sharpens your logic and strengthens your ability to reason. The very act of writing clarifies your intentions. You begin to see exactly what you think, and more importantly, why you think it. Great leaders, inventors, and problem solvers have always used thinking on paper. They don't just wait for brilliant ideas to strike. They build their ideas line by line, question by question. They journal. They sketch. They outline. This method brings subconscious thoughts to the surface. It activates a deeper level of mental engagement. You might write down a problem you've been wrestling with, and suddenly the solution reveals itself. Not because it was hidden from you, but because your mind finally had the space to work it out clearly. When you think on paper, your goals become tangible. Instead of saying, "I want to be successful," you write, "I will increase my income by $50,000 this year by launching a new product line." That clarity brings urgency. It drives action. Goals that are written down are far more likely to be achieved. Why? Because the act of writing programs the goal into your subconscious mind. It signals commitment. It takes the idea out of the dream world and into the real world. One of the most effective exercises is to take a blank sheet of paper, write your biggest challenge at the top, and then list 20 possible solutions. Don't filter. Don't judge. Just write. By the time you reach number 15 or 16, you'll often uncover an idea that changes everything. This process forces your brain to dig deeper than the surface-level answers. It trains you to become a solution-oriented thinker. Planning is another area where thinking on paper becomes a superpower. Before any major project, goal, or decision, map it out. Break it down into steps. Identify obstacles. List the resources you need. When you write a plan, you reduce fear and increase confidence. You take a project that seems big and intimidating and break it into small, doable actions. This turns procrastination into momentum. Journaling is another powerful form of thinking on paper. Use it to reflect on your day, process your emotions, capture insights, and track your growth. When you write regularly, you begin to notice patterns, both positive and negative. You develop self-awareness. You start catching your own excuses. You discover what energizes you and what drains you. Over time, your journal becomes a record of personal evolution, a written story of how your thinking has matured. Lists, outlines, mind maps, diagrams, all of these are tools of structured thinking. They give you a framework. They help you break complexity into clarity. They allow you to analyze, prioritize, and simplify. They help you think in straight lines instead of circles. Without a method for organizing your thoughts, you end up chasing ideas instead of building them. Practice zero-based thinking. One of the most powerful thinking tools you can develop is the habit of zero-based thinking. It is a mental strategy used by top performers, decision makers, and strategic thinkers to break free from the inertia of past choices. Zero-based thinking simply asks the question, knowing what I now know, would I start this again? It's a simple question, but it's one that demands honesty, courage, and clarity. Most people don't ask it because they're afraid of what the answer might mean. But those who are willing to face it head-on are often the ones who experience the biggest breakthroughs in their personal and professional lives. We all make decisions based on the best information we have at the time, but circumstances change. New information becomes available. So, what once made sense may no longer serve us. Zero-based thinking allows you to pause and reevaluate with fresh eyes. It allows you to separate yourself from sunk costs, time, energy, or money already invested, and look at the situation as if you were starting from scratch. It gives you the chance to reset without guilt, without fear, and without the weight of old commitments. In business, this question is used by the most successful executives when reviewing projects, products, partnerships, or strategies. They ask, if we weren't already doing this, would we begin it today? If the answer is no, the next logical step is to ask, then why are we still doing it? This kind of thinking cuts through rationalization and emotional attachment. It forces decisions based on current facts, not past investments or wishful thinking. It keeps an organization lean, focused, and adaptable. On a personal level, zero-based thinking is just as critical. It applies to relationships, routines, habits, commitments, and even your career. Think about the friendships in your life. Ask yourself, knowing what I now know about this person, would I choose to build this relationship again? If not, why is it still in your life? Consider your daily routines. Would you still choose the same patterns, habits, or responsibilities if you weren't already locked into them? If the answer is no, something needs to change. People often stay in jobs they've outgrown, relationships that drain them, or projects that no longer align with their goals, simply because they've invested time. But sunk cost is not a reason to continue. That's the trap. Just because you've spent 5 years in a job doesn't mean you owe it 10 more. Just because you've put effort into a goal doesn't mean it's still the right goal. Zero-based thinking frees you from that emotional weight. It allows you to pivot with purpose instead of clinging to old plans that no longer fit your future. This practice also reveals blind spots. Sometimes, we continue down a path out of habit, pride, or fear of change. We don't stop to ask whether it still serves us because we don't want to admit we were wrong. But zero-based thinking isn't about judgment. It's about growth. It says, I made the best decision I could back then, but now I have better information. That's not failure. That's wisdom. The ability to reassess without ego is what separates those who evolve from those who remain stuck. Zero-based thinking also enhances your confidence. When you regularly evaluate your actions and choices through this lens, you begin to build trust in your own judgment. You no longer stay attached to things out of insecurity or fear of regret. Instead, you build a mindset of agility. You become more proactive, more strategic, and more in control of your direction. You learn to make decisions based on what's right, not what's familiar. This tool is especially valuable in times of transition or uncertainty. When things are changing rapidly, clinging to the past can be costly. Zero-based thinking gives you a structured way to reorient yourself. It allows you to look at each area of your life and ask, would I choose this again today under these current conditions? It puts you back in the driver's seat and breaks the cycle of unconscious repetition. Use the 80-20 rule for thinking. One of the most transformative mental tools you can apply to your thinking is the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle. It states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. This principle applies to every area of life, business, relationships, health, productivity, but it's especially powerful when applied to thinking. Most people spend the majority of their time dwelling on problems, worrying about things they can't control, or obsessing over details that make very little difference. High achievers do the opposite. They use the 80-20 rule to focus their thinking where it counts, on the few key decisions, actions, or solutions that drive the greatest outcomes. When you approach a problem, the natural tendency is to spend most of your time analyzing what went wrong, why it happened, and who's to blame. That's reactive thinking. It might feel productive, but it rarely leads to resolution. Strategic thinkers flip the ratio. They spend 20% of their time understanding the problem and 80% of their time focused on solutions. They ask, what can we do about this? Instead of, why is this so bad? Why is this so bad? This shift in mental focus builds momentum. It moves you forward instead of keeping you stuck. The 80-20 rule teaches you to think with leverage. Not all thoughts are created equal. Not all tasks deserve equal mental energy. Some decisions are trivial, and some are transformative. Some actions yield little return, while others change the entire game. When you discipline your mind to identify the critical 20% of inputs that create 80% of your desired outcomes, you begin to make sharper, faster, and more effective decisions. Start by looking at your goals. What are the few key outcomes that would make the biggest impact on your life or work? Then ask, what are the few key actions that will lead directly to those outcomes? Most people spend their mental energy on distractions, urgencies, and low-value tasks. But when you focus on that top 20%, the highest value thoughts, plans, and ideas, you gain clarity, reduce overwhelm, and increase productivity. Apply this to your thinking habits as well. What thoughts dominate your mind each day? Are they high-value thoughts, ideas that energize, direct, and empower you? Or are they low-value thoughts, worries, doubts, regrets, and complaints? Just like you would audit your finances or time, you can audit your thinking. Ask yourself, what 20% of thoughts give me 80% of my stress? And then ask, what 20% of thoughts give me 80% of my progress, peace, or confidence? By identifying and intentionally feeding your mind with those high-return thoughts, you begin to rewire your mental habits for peak performance. The 80-20 rule also applies to relationships and communication. In any group or organization, a small percentage of people often contribute the most value, and a small percentage of conversations drive the majority of results. Identify who those people are. Spend more mental energy preparing for, engaging with, and learning from them. Avoid getting mentally drained by low-impact conversations or trying to manage every opinion. Focus on the few voices that matter most to your vision and values. When facing a decision, apply the 80-20 lens. Which option would likely produce the biggest long-term benefit with the least effort or cost? One smart decision outweighs dozens of average ones. Don't get caught in the trap of overthinking minor details. Major breakthroughs come from identifying the few key moves that create exponential value. This principle is especially powerful in problem solving. Ask yourself, what's the 20% of the problem that's causing 80% of the difficulty? If you can isolate that, you can solve it faster and with less effort. Most problems are complex only because we treat them as if everything matters equally. The 80-20 rule reminds you that most things don't. The goal isn't to think more, it's to think better. Discipline your mind's success in any area of life begins in the mind. The way you think determines the way you feel, the way you act, and ultimately the results you create. But the mind, like any powerful tool, must be trained. Left undisciplined, it becomes a source of distraction, fear, negativity, and self-sabotage. Discipline is the ability to control your thoughts, to focus them, to direct them with purpose. The people who achieve the most in life aren't necessarily the smartest. They're the ones who have learned to master and discipline their thinking. Yet, undisciplined mind jumps from thought to thought, reacting to the world rather than responding to it with intention. It becomes a victim of external noise, news, opinions, fears, and endless interruptions. It fixates on what went wrong, what might go wrong, and what others think. This kind of thinking drains energy, reduces clarity, and leads to indecision. But the disciplined mind is focused. It is calm under pressure. It doesn't chase every idea. It selects the best idea and concentrates on it until results are produced. Mental discipline starts with awareness. You can't control what you don't notice. Begin by observing your thinking patterns. Notice how often your thoughts drift to worry, judgment, excuses, or comparison. Notice how quickly your mind jumps away from difficult tasks to seek distraction. The act of observing without judgment creates space, and in that space, you gain the ability to redirect. You learn to say, "This thought isn't helping me," and replace it with one that does. One of the key disciplines of the mind is the ability to focus. In a world of endless notifications and demands, focus has become a rare superpower. Training your mind to stay locked onto one task, one goal, or one line of thought requires effort. But it pays exponential returns. Every time you resist the urge to switch tasks, check your phone, or give in to boredom, you strengthen your mental stamina. You build your capacity to do deep, meaningful work. You begin to think in longer, more strategic cycles. Another essential form of mental discipline is controlling your self-talk. The way you speak to yourself shapes your identity. Most people go through their day with a constant inner dialogue of doubt, criticism, or fear. I'm not ready. This won't work. What if I fail? These thoughts may feel automatic, but they are not permanent. You can retrain your inner voice. You can choose to speak to yourself like a coach, not a critic. Discipline means interrupting negative loops and replacing them with statements that support your goals. I've handled hard things before. I am in control. I am in control. Matters and I'm focused on it. Mental discipline also involves directing your attention toward what you can control. The undisciplined mind dwells on the past, fixates on what others are doing, and wastes energy trying to control the uncontrollable. The disciplined mind narrows its focus to the present moment and the next right action. It asks, what can I do right now that moves me forward? This mindset creates momentum. It builds confidence. It transforms worry into productive effort. Visualization is another tool of mental discipline. High performers in every field rehearse success in their minds before they create it in reality. They see the outcome they want. They mentally walk through the steps to achieve it. They program their subconscious with images of winning, not of losing. This is not wishful thinking. It's disciplined mental preparation. It trains the brain to expect success, to anticipate challenges, and to move through them with clarity and control. Like any skill, mental discipline grows with consistent practice. Meditation, journaling, silence, goal review, and visualization are daily exercises that strengthen your ability to command your own mind. It's not about suppressing thoughts. It's about choosing which thoughts deserve your attention, energy, and belief. When you train your mind this way, you stop reacting to life and start shaping it. You become the architect of your outcomes, not the byproduct of circumstance. You learn to lead yourself first, before you attempt to lead anyone or anything else.